For 46 centuries, it has stood. Billions of people have looked at it. Thousands of scholars have studied it. And yet, after all of that time, all of that investigation, we still cannot fully explain what is inside. What if the Great Pyramid of Giza was never fully finished being discovered? Most of us learned the same story in school. The Great Pyramid was a tomb built for a pharaoh named Khufu, constructed roughly 4,500 years ago, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the only one still standing. That story is not wrong, but it may be incomplete. Because when you look carefully at everything archaeologists actually found inside the Great Pyramid, and everything they have not yet been able to explain, the picture becomes far more complex and far more fascinating than any classroom version of history ever suggested. Hidden spaces, sealed doors, mathematical riddles carved in stone, chambers pointing towards stars. Today on Ancestor Origins, we are going inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, not just to walk its corridors, but to confront the genuine mysteries that modern science and archaeology have uncovered there. This is not a story about conspiracy theories. This is a story about how extraordinary an ancient African civilization truly was, and how much of their achievement we may still be learning to understand. To understand the Great Pyramid, you first need to understand the civilization that built it. Ancient Egypt was an African civilization. Its roots were in the Nile Valley, one of the most fertile and strategically significant corridors on the African continent. Long before the pyramids were imagined, a culture had been developing along the banks of that river for thousands of years. A culture with sophisticated religious beliefs, a complex understanding of mathematics and astronomy, and a centralized system of governance unlike almost anything else existing at that time. By the time the Old Kingdom period began, roughly 4,500 to 5,000 years ago, Egypt had already been refining its understanding of monumental construction for generations. The pyramids did not appear out of nowhere. They were the end product of a long process of architectural learning. Before Khufu was Djoser, whose stepped pyramid at Saqqara was one of the earliest large stone structures ever erected by human hands. After Djoser came Sneferu, Khufu's father, who constructed multiple pyramid forms, learning from each attempt, correcting angles, refining proportions, building knowledge into stone. By the time Khufu's builders broke ground at Giza, they were not experimenting. They were executing a vision refined across multiple generations of builders, priests, engineers, and astronomers. The Great Pyramid, called Khufu's Horizon in ancient Egyptian, was the largest of 3 major pyramids constructed at Giza. For 4,000 years, it held the record as the tallest man-made structure on Earth. Its base covers an area larger than 10 football fields. It contains millions of stone blocks, many of them weighing several tons each. And it was built by Africans, by Egyptian workers, not slaves as popular mythology long suggested, but organized workers, skilled craftsmen, engineers, astronomers, and administrators, all coordinated through one of the ancient world's most sophisticated bureaucratic systems. We know this because we found their graffiti, their administrative records, their bakeries, their medical supplies, their humanity. But here is where history becomes genuinely strange. We know who built it, we know roughly when, we know something about how. What we do not fully know, even today, is everything that is inside it. In recent years, a series of scientific investigations used cutting-edge technology, not pickaxes, not excavation, but muon tomography, thermal scanning, and ground-penetrating radar to look inside the Great Pyramid without disturbing a single stone. What they found has not resolved the mystery, it has deepened it. Thermal cameras trained on the pyramid's exterior have detected anomalies, patches of stone that heat and cool at slightly different rates than the material surrounding them. This is scientifically significant because it suggests those zones may have different internal compositions. They may contain voids, air spaces, concealed chambers, or construction materials different from the bulk limestone forming the pyramid's body. Some of these anomalies are positioned in locations that correspond to no known architectural feature, no passage, no chamber, no structural purpose that anyone has been able to map. What are they? No one has been able to say with certainty. Then there are the shafts. Inside the Queen's Chamber, two narrow passages were discovered cutting through the pyramid's body. They are approximately 20 centimeters square, barely wide enough to fit a human arm. For a long time, scholars classified them as ventilation shafts, assuming they connected the interior to the outside air. But they do not connect to anything on the outside. Both passages terminate, sealed, blocked at their far ends by small stone slabs. One of those slabs was first identified and partially explored using a robotic camera in the early 1990s. The camera found a sealed stone door with copper handles, still intact, never opened. Behind that first sealed door, the robot found another passage, and at its far end, another sealed door. What lies beyond the second door has never been seen. No one has been able to obtain permission to open it. No one has been able to reach it by any method that would satisfy the requirements of preservation. The sealed doors of the Queen's Chamber shafts remain sealed, as they have been for 46 centuries. Beyond those sealed shafts, the Scan Pyramids project, a multinational scientific initiative using muon particle detectors, confirmed in recent years the existence of at least one large void space inside the Great Pyramid, above the Grand Gallery. This void is enormous by interior standards. Its existence was not predicted by any architectural model. It does not correspond to any known chamber or structural necessity. What is it? Why was it created? Was it intentional? Researchers still disagree. Some believe it is a construction void, a space left deliberately during construction to reduce structural stress on lower chambers. Others believe it is an unexcavated chamber. A few suggest it may be connected to a broader system of spaces that has never been mapped or entered. The discovery was not hidden. It was announced to the world. It was peer-reviewed. It was legitimate. And it did not have a satisfying explanation. Then there is the matter of the pyramid's geometry. The Great Pyramid is aligned to the cardinal directions with extraordinary precision. Its four faces point north, south, east, and west with a margin of error so small, fractions of a single degree, that modern engineers have found themselves genuinely puzzled about how it was achieved without satellite navigation, without the instruments we would use today. The shafts inside point toward specific star positions that held deep significance in ancient Egyptian cosmological belief. The structure's proportions encode mathematical relationships that were not supposed to be formally documented in human knowledge until thousands of years after the pyramid was built. Whether these proportions are coincidental or whether they represent deliberate encoding remains debated, but the debate itself tells us something important. We do not fully understand the depth of knowledge ancient Egyptians brought to this construction. Here is where honest history must make room for honest uncertainty. The Great Pyramid was most likely built as a royal monument, as a structure connected to the cult of the pharaoh, to the Egyptian belief in the afterlife, to the cosmological worldview that saw the king as a mediator between the living and the divine. That interpretation is supported by decades of serious archaeological research and should not be casually dismissed. But the absence of the expected evidence, the missing mummy, the empty sarcophagus, the lack of the kind of rich funerary inscriptions found in later royal tombs, leaves room for an honest question. Was the pyramid only a tomb? The granite sarcophagus found inside the king's chamber is wider than the passage leading to that chamber, which means it was placed there during construction, not carried in afterward. It was planned from the beginning. Whether it ever held a body, we cannot say for certain. No organic remains were found there, no conclusive burial evidence. Some historians argue the burial was looted in antiquity, that grave robbers and centuries of occupation removed everything. This is plausible. It happened at other tombs. The argument is reasonable. Others argue the absence of certain features that appear in genuine Egyptian royal tombs of the period suggests the king's chamber was never intended as a burial space in the conventional sense at all. The debate is real, and it remains unresolved. How was it done? The pyramid contains millions of stone blocks. Many of those blocks in the interior are composed of granite, quarried at Aswan, hundreds of kilometers to the south, transported by river, cut and placed with precision in the heart of the structure. We have archaeological evidence of the workers. We have administrative papyri, some of the oldest documents ever discovered, that describe supply chains, labor rotations, and the movement of materials. We know there were skilled quarrymen, boat crews, ramp builders, and engineers. What we do not have is a complete, agreed-upon understanding of exactly how the most precisely placed stones were positioned with such extraordinary accuracy. The experimental archaeology community has proposed many models. Some are more compelling than others. None has been universally accepted. And this matters because the precision of the Great Pyramid is not a minor detail. The structure's alignment, its proportions, and the placement of its internal chambers are so exact that any plausible construction method has to account for a level of organized knowledge that is genuinely impressive for any civilization at any period of history. There is another dimension to this story that deserves to be stated plainly. For a long time, particularly in Western historical tradition, there was a reluctance to fully credit African people with the intellectual and organizational capacity behind achievements like the Great Pyramid. This reluctance produced some genuinely embarrassing episodes in the history of archaeology. Theories involving lost continents, alien architects, or migrating civilizations from outside Africa, all invented to explain an achievement that the evidence very clearly places in the hands of Africans, in Africa, with African knowledge systems, African cosmology, and African labor. The science is clear on this. The archaeology is clear on this. The Great Pyramid was built by Egyptians, an African people on African soil with African knowledge. What is genuinely mysterious is not who built it. What is genuinely mysterious is how much of what they knew, what they encoded, and what they sealed inside it we still have not managed to understand. Standing at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, you feel the weight of time differently than anywhere else on Earth. This is not a ruin. It was not buried and discovered. It has been here, above ground, visible, touchable, for longer than almost any other human-made object. Ancient Greece was young when this pyramid was already ancient. Rome had not yet been imagined. The Library of Alexandria, that monument to accumulated knowledge, was built 2,000 years after this structure was already complete, and it still holds secrets. The sealed doors inside the Queen's chamber shafts have not been opened. The large void detected above the Grand Gallery has not been entered. The thermal anomalies in the pyramid's limestone body have not been fully explained.
The mathematical ratios encoded in the structure's proportions are still generating scholarly debate. And somewhere beneath the sands of the Giza Plateau, ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected subsurface features that have not yet been excavated or fully analyzed. The story of the Great Pyramid of Giza is not finished. What it tells us, clearly, undeniably, powerfully, is something that should change the way we think about ancient African civilization. The people who built this monument were not primitive, they were not lucky, they were not guided by outside forces. They were a sophisticated, intellectually advanced African civilization that understood mathematics, astronomy, engineering, theology, and the relationship between earthly architecture and cosmic order at a level that still commands the respect of scientists and engineers today. They built something that was deliberately designed to last, and it has. They may have built something that was deliberately designed to preserve knowledge, and whatever it preserves, knowledge, ritual purpose, encoded meaning, or something we have not yet imagined, may still be waiting. Perhaps the most extraordinary thing about the Great Pyramid of Giza is not what we have found inside it. It is what we have not found yet, and the quiet certainty that our ancestors, our African ancestors, knew exactly what they were doing when they sealed it.